The courthouse clock groaned its last toll as the silver coin clinked against the oak desk. 12 cents. The deed slid across the wood, dry parchment against the judge's weary hand. No cheers, no witnesses. Only the scratching of a pen and the rancher's rough palm closing around paper that weighed heavier than gold. Booth eels struck the floorboards like hollow drums. Outside, the wind carried whispers through the street. Men spat in the dust. Women tugged children from windows. The deal was done. No one dared meet his eye. By sundown, the cabin rose from the mesa like a broken tooth. Its frame leaned against the desert sky, each plank gray with sun and memory. A single crow perched upon the chimney, black wings gleaming red in the last light. The door swung inward with a moan. His boots crossed the threshold, spurs chiming against warped boards. The air inside was stale, sour as rope burn and rainless years. The rafters hung low, shadows tangled like cobwebs. Then he saw her. From a center beam, she hung, head bowed, hair spilling like a dark river down her chest. She was no ordinary girl. Her shoulders nearly brushed the rafters, her legs long enough that her bare feet touched the floorboards with ghostly weight. The rope creaked as the wind pressed against the walls, making her sway in silence. A giant, Apache blood written in every line of her face, broad cheekbones cast in pale lamplight, lips cracked as though the desert had drunk them dry. Her hands dangled, scarred at the wrists, raw with the memory of shackles. His breath caught. The cabin was smaller for her presence, a coffin too narrow for what it held. He stepped closer. The boards groaned. Dust stirred in the stillness, as though the room itself recoiled from him. Her eyes, though lifeless, they stared half open, catching the lamplight with a glint that did not belong to the dead. Gray glass, accusing, begging, remembering. A shiver ran down his arms, though the desert air was hot enough to choke. Something metallic gleamed at her throat. He reached, fingers brushing against the cold edge of it. A dog tag, rusted, stamped with letters and numbers no man of the frontier could place. The chain cut against the rope, as if it too had fought to hold her. The silence deepened. Outside, coyotes called in the distance, their cries slicing through the thin walls. The crow shifted its wings above, claws scraping stone. The beam groaned, the rope stretched, and her body rocked slow and deliberate, as though moved not by wind, but by will. The door slammed shut. He spun, hand dropping to where no weapon waited. Only shadows, only breath and heartbeat. The cabin had sealed itself, air thick as grave dirt. The girl swayed once more, rope croaking, eyes fixed upon him now with a weight of unspoken judgment. And the storyteller's voice breaks through the dark. That's how the dead began speaking to him. The shovel split the earth, but the soil refused him. Hardpan clanged like iron, sparks leaping from stone. Sweat ran from his brow, streaking the dust on his face. Each thrust of the blade struck harder, but the ground gave nothing. Behind him, the girl's body lay stretched across a wool blanket. The giant form seemed heavier than any mortal weight, her limbs stiff, her head turned just enough that the half-open eyes caught the stars above. Coyotes barked at the rim of the mesa. Their yellow eyes glowed in the dark, circling wider, waiting. He raised the lantern higher, light spilling across cactus and bone-white rock. The flame guttered, though no wind touched it. The shovel slipped from his grip. His knees pressed into the dry earth. He clawed at the soil with bare hands, breaking nails on rock, pulling fistfuls of gravel that cut his skin. The hole deepened only an inch, then closed again, the desert swallowing what little he tore away. A sound, low, deep, echoed through the canyon. Not wind, not beast. It rolled through the earth like a heartbeat, steady and ancient. The coyotes scattered. He turned. The girl's shadow stretched long against the rock, longer than the lantern's glow could cast, twisting like it sought to stand without her. Her body remained still on the blanket, but her shade shifted, the head rising, the arms lifting, fingers reaching. His breath caught. The lantern rattled in his hand. The old ones had warned him. Their words still rang in memory, spoken low and grave at the trading post. She was born of the mountains, spirit of red stone and black sky. They wronged her. Death chained her, but vengeance keeps her walking. He staggered back, boots grinding against stone. The rope still clung to her neck, fibers stiff with dried blood. Yet the shadow swayed as though the noose had not stilled her. Storm clouds rolled in sudden and fierce, thunder breaking across the desert floor. Lightning cracked, forking down the canyon walls, splitting rock into shards. Rain hissed in the dust, but vanished before it could wet the ground. The lantern flickered. The girl's shadow rippled against the cabin wall behind him now, though her body lay untouched where he had dragged her. The outline of her face, her great frame, loomed tall, taller than the rafters. He could not bury her. He could not burn her. Even the desert itself spat her back. The shovel clanged once more as he dropped it into the shallow cut of earth. His chest heaved. From the dark of the cabin doorway, boards creaking like whispers, the sound came, rope groaning, wood straining. He turned slow, heart hammering. The giant girl swayed once more from the beam inside, though he knew her body still lay on the blanket behind him. The stormlight painted the horizon red, and the storyteller's voice fell low. When the moon turned the desert to fire, the dead began to walk. The dog tag struck the table with a hollow clang. Rusted edges caught the lantern light. Numbers and letters burned into metal. 2006. The rancher's hand lingered on it, fingers trembling though his face stayed stone. Wind hammered the shutters. The cabin groaned, rafters rattling. The girl's body hung where it always had, head tilted, shadow crawling across the wall like it sought to escape her frame. Her eyes, half open, glimmered at the steel plate lying between them. He leaned closer. Letters rose against the rust. Names scoured half away, but not the date. A century too far. A century unborn. His chest tightened. The whisper of rain against the roof turned sharp, like boots crunching gravel. He snatched the tag, closed it in his fist. The sound grew louder. Outside, horses stamped the dirt. Spurs clinked. The ring of metal on metal. He blew the lantern low, pressed to the wall, and listened. Through the cracks, firelight licked across the street. 6 riders stood at the edge of town. At their head, a figure broad-shouldered, gray uniform shredded to dust, metals gleaming dull against his chest, Colonel Briggs. His voice carried through the storm, sharp as a whip. Bring me the deed. Bring me the cabin. Or I burn the whole damn town. A gun cocked. The townsfolk's silence answered. The rancher's grip tightened on the tag. He looked back at the girl. Her shadow swelled larger, filling the walls, her rope twisting though no wind stirred. The boards under his boots thrummed, low and steady, like a drumbeat urging him forward. He crossed the cabin to the corner, knelt, fingers dug beneath loose planks. Dust filled his throat as he dragged free the old chest. The iron latch creaked. Inside lay 2 revolvers, nickel-dulled, grips worn smooth by years. He lifted them, the weight settling into his hands like they had been waiting. Lightning split the sky. Her eyes flickered in its flash. He strapped on the belt, holstered the iron. He rose slow, steady, shoulders straight, as if years had fallen away. His breath steadied, heartbeat slowing into rhythm with the thunder. A whisper cut the silence. Rope straining, wood bending. He turned. The giant girl swayed in the lamplight, shadows stretching to the door, pointing toward the town. He nodded once. The cabin door swung wide. Rain hissed on dust, lightning painting the mesa in blood-red light. Across the street, Briggs' men shifted in their saddles, rifles gleaming. The colonel's eyes narrowed. The rancher stepped into the storm, boots sinking into mud that vanished the moment his foot lifted. His hand hovered over the revolver, steady as stone. Behind him, the cabin darkened. A figure too tall for its frame loomed in the window, watching, and the storyteller's voice cracked like fire. He was no simple rancher. He was the gunfighter they thought gone to dust, and the dead had chosen him to carry their justice. The street burned red beneath the dying sun. Colonel Briggs sat tall in the saddle, his men fanned wide, rifles glinting. Their laughter carried thin on the wind, sharp as broken glass. Bootsteps cracked against the boards. The rancher walked from the saloon doors, dust rising at his heels. His coat swayed, revolvers heavy on his hips. His eyes fixed on the colonel, steady cold. The town froze. Mothers clutched children, men gripped doorframes, no one daring a word. The storm had passed, but the air still pressed thick, charged with something older than lightning. Briggs spat, voice rolling like thunder. "Thought you laid down your irons, Calder. You got no fight left." The rancher's hand brushed the butt of his pistol, slow measured. Behind him, shadows lengthened. The beam of the cabin seemed to stretch across the street, though no building stood there. A towering silhouette rose, giant shoulders, long hair swaying as though moved by its own wind. The colonel's horse shied, nostrils flaring. One of his men cursed, raising his rifle. The gunfire split the silence. The rancher's draw was faster. His revolver barked flame. The man toppled, rifle clattering. Another lunged forward, only to be thrown from the saddle as though struck by an unseen hand. Dust swirled in a spiral, wrapping Calder's frame, carrying with it the faint shape of the hanged girl's shadow. Bullets tore the air. The townsfolk swore later they saw the giant's hand swat them aside, lead crumpling in midair before it could strike him. Calder moved through the storm of fire calm as stone, each shot from his iron clean, final. Men dropped one by one, dust drinking their blood. The colonel roared, spurring his horse forward. Saber gleamed as he swung low. Calder rolled, boots skidding through mud, revolver bucking twice. Sparks flew from the blade as it fell from Briggs' grip. The horse reared, screaming. The colonel tumbled into the dirt, face twisting with rage. He scrambled, reaching for a fallen rifle. But the shadow reached first. A rope whipped through the air, coiling around his throat. No hands held it. It tightened, pulling him to his feet. He clawed, choked, eyes bulging. The townsfolk screamed, some crossing themselves, others hiding their faces. The rancher stood still, watching. The noose lifted the colonel high, his boots kicking, scraping furrows in the dirt. His face turned red, then purple. Above him, the giant girl's shade loomed against the blood-red sky, her eyes blazing fire. The rope snapped taut. The colonel's body stilled. The silence rang louder than gunfire. When the townsfolk dared look again, the noose swung empty. The giant's shadow was gone. Only the rancher remained, smoke curling from his revolver, his coat torn, face streaked with dust and sweat. At his feet lay a rusted dog tag. The name burned clear at last. The old storyteller leans forward, voice low as wind over stone. They say he bought that cabin for 12 cents, but the price he paid was blood and the justice of a giant girl wronged.